I like to keep it simple and play what I feel. That's how Jimmie Vaughan describes his guitar playing. Now the question is, where did his feeling come from? Maybe nights as a young boy listening to the radio in his bedroom in Oak Cliff, Texas, Jimmy would hear the sounds of Chuck Berry, Lightning Hopkins, Jimmy Reed, and so many more. Or maybe he was just born with some of it. I saw an interview Jimmy gave one time, and I think this kind of sums up his feelings on where his music came from. He said, "When I talk about country and blues, they're the same thing. Muddy Waters and Hank Williams, Webb Pierce and Jimmy Reed. When I was a kid, I didn't understand the difference. And you know, friends, when you're a kid, it isn't so much you don't understand, it's that you don't really care. As long as it sounds good, you don't overthink it. Just go with the flow and enjoy," which is exactly what Jimmy did with his music and still does to this day. And I think this is one of the main factors as to why it's so enjoyable just to kick back and listen to him play. Jimmy went on to say when asked, "Why do you want to play blues? Why don't you play country?" And he just answered back, "I'd listen to the country guys, and they'd be doing a Jimmy Reed song. They're playing the same lick. And Ray Charles, Little Milton, Guitar Jr., Lonnie Brooks, and B.B. King, they all did country songs. Is Bob Wills country, jazz, or blues?" And the answer is, it's American music. I'm tired of trying to pigeonhole everything. I want to bring it together. It comes from the same place. Jimmy used to follow the blues great Freddie King around and pick up a lot from his playing. It seems, as Jimmy would later say, that Freddie took a shine to him and started getting him in the back doors of some clubs where he would sit and just take it all in. Jimmy would leave home around 15 years old and start playing in a band. He'd come back a year or so later and then head out to California for a few years, and then back and end up in Texas, in the city of Austin. The Austin music scene was really happening at that time, and there were plenty of gigs. Jimmy played in a variety of blues bar bands. In 1972, he formed his own group, which supported many touring blues musicians. In 1974, Jimmy was playing a barbecue joint with his band, and a guy from California who had been playing up in Minnesota had just come down to Austin to check out the music scene. His name was Kim Wilson, and he got up to sing and play some harmonica. Jimmy really liked Kim's talent and feel. And a few months later, they would get their own group together, and soon they were gigging at the newly opened Antone's, which would go on to become one of the most famous blues venues around. Jimmy and Kim would call their newly formed group the Fabulous Thunderbirds. After performing for several years in and around the Austin area, the Fabulous Thunderbirds signed a recording contract with Chrysalis Records. Their first two albums were released in 1979 and 1980, with Kim Wilson singing lead and blowing harmonica, Jimmy on lead guitar, Keith Ferguson on bass, and Mike Buck on drums for the first album. Mike left the band and was replaced by Fran Christina for the second one. The band's third album, Butt Rockin', was released in 1981, but the record label dropped the band following the release of their fourth album, T-Bird Rhythm, leaving the band without a recording contract. Now, I don't know about you all, but for myself, I think those first four albums of the Thunderbirds were the best. I just loved Jimmy's playing on them. The whole sound and songs were so very cool. The first two albums, titled Girls Go Wild and What's the Word, are now considered significant blues recordings. But when they were released, although they sold well locally, I read somewhere they only printed 3,000 units of them at that time, so they never got distributed nationally from what I gather. Jimmy's guitar work and tone around this time was excellent. He said he was playing his Strat through Fender amps for the most part. He said his Bassman head with 10-inch speakers was his go-to at the time, but he also played through super reverbs. I'm going to leave this open for discussions. I know some of you who follow the channel have inside information on equipment of players. Some of the other information I found, some seems kind of sketchy, so So leave what you know and have heard in the comments sections about Jimmie's gear. So after the first 4 albums, the Thunderbirds were dropped from the Chrysalis label in 1982, and they went along without a recording contract for around 4 years, until they were signed by Epic. The album Tuff Enuff was recorded over in London and did well for the group. It got them airplay, and the Tuff Enuff video was a big player on MTV. The singles of Tuff Enuff and the cover of the old Sam and Dave song Wrap It Up sold well and took the album up to platinum sales. Now, after a couple more albums, the music was kind of straying away from its roots, in my opinion, and I'm sure this didn't sit well with Jimmie. The reasons aren't exactly clear, but Jimmie left the group. My feelings was that Jimmie was one of those players who played what he felt from the heart, and that wasn't the direction the band was heading in. I think that Jimmie Vaughan cared way more about his music than he did about money. At the same time the T-Birds were left without a recording contract, Jimmie's younger brother, Stevie Ray, came storming onto the national scene with his debut album, Texas Flood. For the next few years, he dominated not only the Texas blues scene, but the entire American scene. With Jimmie leaving the Thunderbirds, the time was right, and he hooked up with his little brother to do an album together. This is something they'd both wanted to do for quite a few years. The album was called Family Style. The album won the Vaughan brothers a Grammy in 1990 in the category Best Contemporary Blues Recording. The track, DFW, written by Jimmie, was awarded a Grammy for the Best Rock Instrumental Performance that same year. Jimmie was also to make his vocal debut on the song White Boots and the song Good Texan. With many great contributions to the album, Jimmie really seemed to dig his teeth deep into the blues on it. The way this album turned out might have been one of the factors for Jimmie to decide to start a solo career. Sadly, the album was to be the last recording that Stevie Ray would make. He was to die in the helicopter crash about a month before this album's release in 1990. But what a great album this turned out to be. At the end of the liner notes on the album, it simply says, "Thanks, Mama V, for letting us play." It took Jimmie a long time after Stevie's tragic death to recover, but he did his best and went on to have a very good solo career. After playing the occasional concert here and there, he returned with his first solo album, Strange Pleasures, in 1994. And it received good reviews and sold pretty well also. Jimmie got out and toured nationally to support the album. He would release a couple more albums titled Out There and Do You Get the Blues, and then he backed off for a time, coming out again with a couple of albums of cover songs around 2010. Jimmie started having heart issues and had what I guess you'd call his first mild heart attack in 2013. So he got a stent put in and slowed down some, it seemed, but he was still out playing shows. To commemorate his 70th birthday, Last Music Company released the Jimmie Vaughan Story, a well-designed and illustrated 12x12 box set that included 5 CDs filled with archive material, including 29 unreleased tracks and much more. But in December of 2022, Jimmie was to suffer a major heart attack and require quadruple bypass. The surgery entailed opening his chest, putting him on the heart-lung machine, and stopping his heart as doctors cleared out the 4 blocked arteries. But now Jimmie's better than ever. As soon as he was released, he said he got right back to playing his guitar at home and getting ready for a new tour. Now, a year later, he's back out playing shows. He has his band called Tilt-A-Whirl and sounds as good as always. Jimmie Vaughan has dedicated his life to making sure the blues not only stays alive, but remains full of life and an inspiration to us all. So if you enjoy the blues, roots rock, and Americana-style music, don't miss a chance to see Jimmie Vaughan if he comes to a venue close to you. You won't be sorry. I'll leave plenty of links in the description section under this video to Jimmie's social media. Check some of his music and merch out. And hey, before I close this video out, I want to give you all a quick heads up who enjoys the live chats I do. I know I don't do many, and I will be alive this Sunday, the 21st, but not on my channel. I'll be hanging out with Ben Coombs on the Canucks with Guitar channel. This will start at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Stop by and say hi or ask questions and talk some guitars, bands, and anything music. I'll leave a link here and in the description below to Ben's channel. Just run over and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't forget about it. That is this Sunday, the 21st at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Come by, say hi, and meet Ben, and check out his channel also. Let's have some fun. I'll see you there. You know, Jimmie Vaughan has been nominated 8 times for a Grammy Award. He's taken 4 awards home with him. His music comes from deep within. He grew up and started playing at 12 years old. He'll turn 73 this coming March of 2024 and still plays with a passion. He's out there keeping the roots of our music alive. Please feel free to leave your thoughts about Jimmie in the comments sections below. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this short video about Jimmie Vaughan. He's always been a favorite of mine. Check out some of his links in the description box and go listen to some of his music. On your way out, I hope you'll subscribe to the channel and maybe hit the like button and share this video. And come by this Sunday and see me on the Canucks with Guitars show.